I made an announcement before about masks, and I want you to know that I'm about to take my mask off because I'm going to be speaking to you, and both Rabbi Bisno and I got tested before high holidays began so that we could do this safely, and then I'll put the mask right back on afterwards. So, tell us about Yom Kippur, prompted 15 Minutes with a Mensch podcast host Bill Battistow, just like that. So tell us about Yom Kippur. As we began our conversation for the latest episode, if you haven't heard it, 15 Minutes with a Mensch, Roda Shalom hosts it, and Bill Battistow is the actual host. So telling about Yom Kippur, I rattled off a few of the things you would expect me to say, and then I said, I actually think Yom Kippur is about hope. As I was describing the traditions associated with Yom Kippur to Bill, I began to understand that our ancient rabbinic sages provided us everything we need, the tools, the time, and the texts, everything we need to ensure our success at tshuva, at returning, everything we need to return to our best selves. And the Reform rabbinic sages gave us the Torah portion from Deuteronomy that we heard this morning, which encourages us to make the right choices. Lo bashamayim hi, the text tells us, choose goodness and blessing. It's challenging, the text tells us, but not impossible. Lo bashamayim hi, it's not in the heavens. Rashi, our most influential commentator on Torah, calls today a day to proclaim that which is broken can be made whole again. I've pretty much convinced myself. I do think Yom Kippur is about hope. To start with, we have been given 40 days to do this work. Yom Kippur is actually the last 40 days Yom Kippur is actually the last of 40 days set aside in the Jewish calendar for the work of tshuva and repentance. There are 40 days from the first day of the month of Elul until Yom Kippur. That was last month. 40 days to remember, analyze, and evaluate the year about to end. We have 40 days to ask for forgiveness, if necessary, and to make amends, if possible. Our sages tell us that the day of Yom Kippur itself, this very day, atones. Now, I'm told that my atheist, secular, and most surely socialist grandfather, the only Jew in his workplace, took off work on Yom Kippur and went golfing. The way I always interpreted the story, he intended for his colleagues to know he was Jewish, but he could not or would not actually observe the holy day as a holy day. But he needed to be acknowledged, to be recognized as a Jew. Does Yom Kippur atone for Jews who spend the day on the golf course? I don't know. Thankfully, it's not up to me. And as far as I know, I'm not talking to anyone at a golf course right now. Although I will tell you that on one of our pandemic b'mitzvahs, there was someone on a zooming in from a chairlift, skiing. So here we are in this room or online, ready to take part in the brilliance of a tradition that gives us all the tools we need. That is, our prayers of confession give us the words to articulate our feelings if we don't have those words ourselves. The ritual of beating or tapping our hearts allows us to imagine our hearts breaking open in contrition. And the notion that Yom Kippur itself atones means that we can emerge from the day, as Rabbi Soloveitchik said, with a sense of confidence and even rejoicing. Last night, Rabbi Bisno spoke about the potency of Yom Kippur as a day in which we rehearse our own deaths. When we don't eat or drink, when we remove ourselves from our daily patterns, we wear the white of our burial shrouds, we face our mortality head on. If rehearsing our own deaths doesn't sound like a gift to you, I invite you to consider this. Think about how you might have felt when leaving a funeral. Were you hyper aware of your own mortality and committed to living fully and with purpose and meaning? If we feel this kind of hopefulness after the death of a loved one or friend, how much the more so after considering our own deaths? The whole point of this exercise is to appreciate that we are still alive. And that means we can choose how we will live the rest of our days, however many or few they may be. And I think that is really hopeful. The poet Mary Oliver brilliantly describes the task of living fully that comes with an awareness of or brush with our own mortality. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? The grasshopper, I mean the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who's eating sugar out of my hand, who's moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who's gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Our colleague, Rabbi David Stern, reminds us that we are here today because we are survivors. He wrote, likely by prudence and caution or the miracles and counsel of modern medicine or the support of loved ones and probably some good old-fashioned dumb luck, we've made it to another high holy day season. By the book of life or some coincidence of the cosmos, we have been granted another year. Yom Kippur comes to remind us that we are survivors every year, not just in a pandemic year. What will we do with this precious gift, this one wild and precious life? About 50 years ago, Rabbi Chaim Stern and the Liturgy Committee of the Central Conference of American Rabbis decided to make Nitzavim, the Torah portion that in the regular cycle of the weekly Torah portions falls a few weeks before Rosh Hashanah. The portion begins, as we heard this morning, you stand this day, all of you, before your God, the Holy One of Blessing, your tribal heads, your elders, and your officials, all the people of Israel, your children, your women, even the stranger within your camp, from woodchopper to water drawer. That opening is meant to catch our attention, all of us, whether or not we actually physically stood there. We were present at the time. Every one of us is part of this people. And all of us, as Rabbi Bisno is fond of saying, are in this together. To me, that's comforting and hopeful. We need one another to get through this day, and we need one another to get through this life. I find the Torah portion to be encouraging and hopeful as well. It tells us that our choices are clear. Choose life, it tells us. Choose blessing over curse. And then it reminds us that while making the right, life-affirming, helpful, generous choice isn't necessarily or always easy, it's not as hard as we might first imagine. Lo b'shamayim hi, it tells us, it's not in the heavens. We can reach it. Despite its serious nature and the inclusion of so many confessions in our Yom Kippur liturgy, we are not meant to dwell on or wallow in or get stuck in the past. The Ger Rebbe, from the influential Hasidic Ger dynasty, once described the danger of overemphasizing our less than stellar past. This is what he taught. If anyone has committed a serious sin, beware of thinking of it. For where our thoughts are, there too is our soul. Let not your soul sink into the mire of sin. It may not be able to extricate itself and repent. And even if one commits a minor sin, why should one think of it? Turn muck this way, turn it that way, it remains muck. What good can come to heaven from occupying your mind with sin? During the time you waste, you may perform a mitzvah, which will truly be like presenting God with a pearl. A parallel teaching, and this one from Charles Schulz, comes in the form of a Peanuts cartoon. Lucy walks towards Charlie Brown, who is standing on the pitcher's mound. She tosses the baseball to him and says, "Sorry, I missed that easy fly ball. I thought I had it. But suddenly I remember all the others I've missed. The past got in my eyes." We are not required or meant to allow our past misdeeds to be the sole determinant of our future. Rather, we should consider our past misdeeds fully and fairly and honestly, and then we emerge from the muck, emerge from the past, and then we step back into the world and into our lives refreshed, renewed, returned, and full of hope. You are most likely, or you will be after the service, familiar with the questions we are called to ask ourselves on this day. These questions are, by the way, the same ones we might be asked if there is a gate to heaven. In any case, they are actually meant to remind us once again that we are still alive. Rava, one of the great scholars of the Talmud, lists some of those questions, most of which are concrete and predictable. Did you deal honestly in your business? Did you set time aside for study? Did you teach children? Yet one of Rava's questions is curious and quite different from the rest. Tzipita lishua? Did you hope for deliverance? Did you live with hope in your heart? Rabbi Leora Frankel offers that hope is the ability or the desire to dwell in the world that is, while simultaneously aspiring to have the world as it might be. She reminds us that time and again Jews have passed down hope through the generations like a baton. She writes, "It was hope that emboldened Abraham to first follow God's call and leave behind everything he knew, and hope that flickered to Moses from the burning bush, igniting our exodus from Egypt. Hope produced our written Torah in Babylonian exile and transformed Judaism into a portable religion when the Romans torched the Second Temple. Through countless inquisitions and pogroms, through the horrors of the Holocaust, our ancestors held fast to hope, and it nourished them. Of course, there is no greater, more tangible manifestation of hope in Jewish history," she writes, "than the modern state of Israel. It is no surprise that Israel's national anthem is Hatikva, the hope." That's the end of Rabbi Frankel's words. I actually hadn't made the connection before, but mikvah and tikva share the same Hebrew root. Mikvah is the ritual pool in which conversion candidates immerse. Mikvah is the last step of a lengthy and thoughtful process. The spiritual connection between mikvah, that pool, that ritual, and tikva, hope, is real. And anyone who witnesses this transformation of another human being can't help but feel hope for this person, and at the same time, hope for the Jewish community and hope for the world. It's that powerful. In past years, I have used this platform on this day to discuss serious matters of justice, social, economic, educational, environmental, racial. Perhaps you expected that today. I do promise to pick up those issues again, and I promise that this congregation will engage fully with matters of justice in the months to come. I chose to focus our attention on hope today because I believe that after the last few years of political tumult and the last 18 months of COVID, this is where we must start. Starting the year with hearts filled with hope will help us navigate the twists and turns we will surely encounter, the missteps we will undoubtedly make, and the repair to our lives, to our communities, and to the world we will endeavor to provide. I wish you a good and healthy year. I wish you a year of hope.